Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into a really fundamental shift in leadership. It's this move away from the old world of command and control and into a new reality that, well, it demands something completely different from our systems and from the people who lead them. So let's just jump right in with the big question. If you're designing any kind of organization, a company, a school, even just a team, this is what it all comes down to. And you know what? The traditional answer just isn't cutting it anymore. For generations, leadership was basically seen as one thing: control. The whole game was to control outcomes for predictability, control the narrative to keep authority, and, of course, control risk to make sure nobody failed. It was a neat top-down model that worked in a much more stable world. But yeah, that world is long gone. Our environment today, it's all about AI, distributed teams, and just constant, unpredictable change. That old, rigid model, it just collapses under its own weight. Control, it turns out, has become an illusion.
So this is where we're heading instead. The challenge has shifted from trying to maintain control to building coherence. So instead of trying to control every outcome, you focus on clear principles. Instead of controlling the story, you make your decision-making process totally visible. And instead of one person trying to manage all the rest, you create a culture where responsibility is shared.
Now, I know it's easy to hear words like governance and immediately think, ugh, bureaucracy, right? Red tape. But that is one of the most damaging misconceptions out there. Bureaucracy is actually what happens when you don't have clarity. It's a system that creates chaos, not order. Real effective governance is the complete opposite. It's not the red tape, it's the architecture. Think of it like the guardrails on a highway. It provides the boundaries, the logic for decisions, and the standards that aren't up for debate. All of that allows people to experiment and learn without driving the whole system off a cliff. So, how does it actually do that? Well, governance works because it makes the unwritten rules explicit. It answers the tough questions people are usually too scared to ask, like, who actually makes the final call here? Or what happens when we mess up? That kind of clarity is what starves out the fear and politics that can poison a culture. And this just lays it all out perfectly. Think about what happens when things inevitably go wrong. Without good governance, any failure just spirals into chaos, blame, and instability. The whole system just panics. But with a strong architecture in place, failure becomes something else entirely. It becomes data. It becomes insight. It literally becomes the fuel for getting better. Okay, so this brings us right back to the leader. If their job isn't to control everything anymore, then what is it? We have to completely rethink the role and get really far away from this old idea of a single hero who's supposed to have all the answers. Research gives us a few different models to look at. You've got the instructional leader who's deep in the curriculum. Then there's the transformational leader who's all about inspiring the culture, and the distributed leader who focuses on sharing power. But today's world, it really demands a blend of all three. And here's the crucial idea. The modern leader's role is really that of a signal holder. They're not expected to have every answer, but they are responsible for protecting the clarity. They're the ones who notice patterns, who guard the core values, and who stop that endless second guessing that just kills all momentum. Their main job is to make sure confusion doesn't become the default culture. So this new kind of leader, this signal holder, has to perform a really critical balancing act. How in the world do you build a system that can innovate like crazy, but also stay stable? That can learn and adapt, but not lose its core identity in the process? Well, the secret is right here, in this balance. On one side, you have to have the freedom to innovate. You need room for experiments, for new tools, for flexible ways of doing things. But, and this is a big but, that freedom has to be anchored by rigorous standards on the other side. We're talking non-negotiable values, clear ethical lines, and a consistent logic that protects what the system is all about. Mature leadership doesn't try to get rid of friction. That's impossible in any complex group of people. Instead, it has a process for using that friction. It takes all that inevitable disagreement, it applies the system's clear principles to find alignment, and then it channels all that energy into clear forward direction. And when you get all these pieces working together, they create this amazing self-reinforcing loop. The system learns by doing things. That action creates feedback. Your governance structure processes that feedback against your standards, and that creates coherence across the whole system, which in turn allows for even bigger and better learning. So if you take one thing away, let it be this. Governance isn't some restriction on learning. It's the very architecture that makes real learning possible in the first place. And that leaves us with a final question for you to think about as you step into your own role, not as a controller, but as an architect. How will you design the resilient, adaptive, and coherent learning systems of tomorrow?